viewers of Equinoxe Television. It's time for the news. Thank you so much for joining us. We begin right away with our Magistraries. The COP27 summit begins today in Egypt, and over 200 governments are in attendance that are discussing on ways of reverting the negative consequences or effects of climate change and global warming. In this newscast, still, a disorganized opposition in Cameroon is the reason President Paul Biya has been in power for over 40 years, according to some political analysts. And still in this newscast, we take you here in Douala to meet a young lady who is interested or specialized in repairing worn-out tires. Those are our major stories. Stay with us for details more. Welcome back, viewers. We just told you a while ago in our headlines that the COP27 summit has begun today in Egypt, and over 200 governments are in attendance for that summit. The members will be discussing on how to revert the negative effects of climate change and also global warming, also the impact of drought and food insecurity, hovering over 200 or 20 million Africans. Let's now have more with our staff man for me, Armstrong Sander.
According to the United Nations climate scientists, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, global temperatures have risen to 1.1 Celsius and are heading towards 1.5 Celsius. It estimates that the world's population could be exposed to life-threatening heat and humidity if temperatures rise to 1.8 centigrade above 1850's levels. In Africa, for example, 20 million people are estimated to be facing food insecurity because of droughts provoked by climate change. With rising temperatures, the IPCC says Africa is one of the most vulnerable regions in the world. It is, however, against this backdrop and the need to prevent escalations that over 200 governments are meeting at the COP27 summit in Egypt, North Africa. Open in the seaside resort city of Sharm el-Sheikh, world leaders and officials will focus discussions on three major areas, notably reducing emissions, helping countries to prepare for and deal with climate change, as well as securing technical support and funding for developing countries for the above reasons. Some areas not fully resolved or covered at the COP26 summit will be picked up. Some areas not fully resolved and covered during the COP26 summit will be picked up, notably loss and damaged finance, money to help countries recover from the effects of climate change, the establishment of a global carbon market to price the effects of emissions into products and services globally. However, choosing Egypt in Africa as the venue has attracted controversies. Some human rights and climate campaigners say the government has stopped them from attending because they have criticized its rights records.
And still talking about climate change and global warming, with the summit of the COP27, which is taking place in Egypt. It began today. We are expecting to have the images on our screens. The world's here single market, the European Union intends to oppose the creation of a brand new international fund for climate reparations. The topic is expected to dominate talks at COP27. Speaking on condition of anonymity in a senior EU official made this known late. That was last week. Climate reparations, also known as loss and damage, refer to the financial payments that developing nations from the global south demand from the industrialized global north in order to compensate the irreversible havoc wreaked by the climate crisis. Low-income countries argue that they are disproportionately affected by extreme weather phenomena such as devastating floods and unusually long drought, even though their release of greenhouse gas emissions has been negligible compared to the north. A 2020 study published in the Lancet revealed that as of 2015, the global north was responsible for 92% of excess global carbon emissions. Since 1850, when burning fossil fuels became the norm, the international community has already committed to raise 100 billion euros per year for developing countries. This money is designed to focus on reducing the impact of greenhouse gas emissions and preventing and minimizing the adverse effects of climate change. The annual target has not been met. And just to inform you that at the initiative of the president of Senegal, Macky Sall, and Spain, Pedro Sanchez, leaders from 30 countries and 20 organizations launched the International Drought Resilience Alliance to accelerate action and help countries to be better prepared for future droughts today. And now we turn to on the headlines. We are now away from the COP27. A disorderly opposition is the reason President Paul Biya is in power or has been in power for 40 years. These are the words of Professor Mesanga Yamding during Equinoxe Sunday's program Vérité in France. And another MP describes President Paul Biya as the king of recent time. Our reporter Innocent Arsenal gives us more interesting excerpts of that program in this report.
Over the common will of the nation, I do so swear.
Many Cameroonians complain that 40 years is too much for one man to be in power, with the country sinking in diverse crises and sufferings endured by Cameroonians. Professor Pascal Mesanga Nyamzing, coordinator of the Biaist movement, blames leaders of opposition political parties for being unable to build a common force to blow away President Paul Biya from the Etoile Palace.
L'opposition elle-même ne s'est jamais regroupée parce que
leaders of the opposition have failed to form a coalition because of their egoistic interests. Out of 100 MPs, CPDM has absolute majority, 88. The opposition politicians have chosen posts.
Bello a choisi d'être ministre d'État.
So, the long stay of President Paul Biya in power stems from an opportunistic, disorderly, and a hungry opposition.
À une opposition affamée, à une opposition opportuniste, à une opposition désordonnée et à une opposition du ventre.
A member of parliament, Honorable Daniel Ngale Etongo, on the program The Insight, projects President Paul Biya as king.
40 years is quite symbolical. If we were to go biblically, we know that some very prominent kings in the Bible reigned for 40 years. You have Eli, you have Saul, you have David, you have Solomon, and we can also say King Paul Biya has entered into that divine realm. And that he has reigned for 40 years, we can only congratulate him.
40 years as a leader, the honorable member of Cameroon's parliament says it's a divine blessing Cameroonians have ever had.
It is not everyone who can reign for 40 years. For you to reign for 40 years, you must have God's infinite blessings. Paul Biya happens to be one of the presidents who has gained the blessing of God.
These political figures, despite their differing political opinions, agree that President Paul Biya, baptized by one of them as king, has also had ups and downs, successes and failures in his leadership. Their wish is that the 89-year-old president could still polish some rough issues of national life for the submerged peace, unity, love and trust to resurface in the Republic of Cameroon.
And now in education, some school authorities in the Senegal Maritime Division, precisely in Edea, complain that there is a low turnout for end-of-course examinations in that part of the country. The parents on their part complain that the delay is due to a high cost of living in the country. Mala Glory tells us more.
The registration of students for end-of-year official examination in most schools in the town of Ideya, Senegal Maritime Division, is timid according to the school administration. They say parents and guardians do not respect registration deadlines instructed by the examiners. A disturbing situation for the staff.
D'après la réglementation,
according to rules and regulations of registration of both official examination and the PTE, they are supposed to be paid before the 31st of October. With the launching of the official exams, important documents are receipt payments and the payment of stamp. If you don't have all of these, you are not a candidate.
Si vous n'avez pas payé ces frais, il est difficile que vous soyez candidat.
The school administration sometimes develops strategies to persuade parents to complete the two-phase payments as the last installment and in January.
Et qu'est-ce que nous faisons quand nous allons
when we get to different classrooms, we give a report of those registered and call on others to follow the example of their friends.
Exemple de leurs camarades qui ont déjà payé les frais.
Sometimes we send the children home at least to call the attention of their parents. Many a times when they are sent home, you see parents reacting. Some parents on their part attribute the delay to limited finance and the high cost of living, which affects the education of their children.
And in health, taking care of emergency situations in most hospital facilities in Cameroon is still a very daunting task to our health officials. Sometimes patients die because a number of emergency cases are overbearing. A workshop to seek ways of properly taking care of emergency cases in hospitals in Cameroon took place recently at the Douala Referral Hospital. Our reporter Immaculate Fogwe completes the story.
Amongst the thousands of patients received at the emergency unit of the Douala General Hospital, some of them are not well attended to due to financial constraints. The neglect of some of these patients accounts for the numerous deaths recorded at the emergency unit.
When a patient comes in the hospital as an emergency, he can die immediately. So that's why it is very important to take care of this patient immediately, whether he has money or not.
To better address this problem, a 3-day scientific workshop was organized in the city of Douala.
So we have all the missions assigned to us, which is to give quality care to patients, then to carry out research and to train. And in these scientific days, we have shown all of the 3 aspects because though it involves emergency medicine.
We discuss about the maternal and child emergency, and these are the 2 priorities of our SND 30 in Cameroon. So we also deal with traumatism, head trauma, usually due to traffic road accidents, and we also discuss on cardiovascular diseases, strokes and heart attacks.
Besides the exchange of ideas on the management of emergency cases, the health personnel were drilled on massage techniques which could be used to assist victims of cardiac arrest.
Now we take you to meet this lady who is so much interested and specialized in repairing worn-out tires. She told our reporters that she does that to earn a living because of unemployment and high cost of living in the country. Our reporter Lucy Liengo Asia spoke with her and now tells us more about her art of repairing worn-out tires in the following report.
37-year-old Kenya Fidel is a mother of 4 kids. She is specialized in tire repairs. According to the ambitious woman, seeing her husband Samuel Ekete in the noble profession encouraged her to join him. From the beginning, I followed him. I watched how he worked. With time, when he's repairing a tire, I also try to assist. When he gets tough, I called him for help. She says she has been in the business for 15 years. When clients come, their wish is for me to do their work. Even when my husband is around, I'm always called to carry out the tasks. Meanwhile, customers who come to fix their tires appreciate her competence and mastery of the job. Whenever I pass here, I see her working. She works well. People appreciate her. It merits encouragement because when you have a wife that helps you in your achievements, it's really great. 1 out of a million, her husband says he is very lucky. I have 4 kids with her. All my kids have been trained equally. When I'm not around, they do their work. While at work, she is my colleague and not my wife. Kenya Fidel challenges young girls to be hardworking and not relent their efforts in getting empowered.
No, no, she don't for us begin make younger. Me to the make younger una see my hand. That I do for a place I do work me all my skin day dirty. But that I don't make my younger they make them. I do put my nails, do anything.
Gone are the days of women emancipation. Today, like the saying goes, what a man can do, a woman can do better.
Interesting indeed. And now in sports, the Reggae Boys of Jamaica have trained in Cameroon for the very first time. The Jamaican football team will be taking on Cameroon in a friendly encounter in preparation for the World Cup competition to be hosted by Qatar. Let's now have more on that training session with our staff man, Smart Jikan Gabriel.
The Reggae Boys of Jamaica had their first training session on Cameroonian soil this Sunday in view of their confrontation against the Indomitable Lions in a farewell game this Wednesday. During their training session that took place at the annex of the Olembe Stadium, the Reggae Boys were more on ball control. Ranked 64th in the last FIFA ranking, the Reggae Boys of Jamaica head to this maiden encounter against the Indomitable Lions, having 1 win, 2 draws and 3 defeats in their last 6 matches. The last game of the Reggae Boys was a defeat in the hands of Argentina, 0-3 last September 28, 2022. Just like Cameroon, the head coach of Jamaica will face Cameroon with mostly home-based players since the match is out of FIFA calendar.
Thank you, Smart, for that sports report. It brings us to the end of the first part of the news. Don't go away. Viewers' Talking Point comes up next. Welcome back, viewers. Today we will be receiving on Talking Point Akilian Nyoiseva. He is a civil society activist, and with him we will be talking about the commemoration of President Paul Biya's government's 40 years in power that was yesterday, the 6th of November 2022. Mr. Akilian, thank you so much for accepting to talk with us on Talking Points tonight. Like I just mentioned, we are talking about President Paul Biya's 40 years in power once again. And observers say that the New Deal government has been somehow a failure, but they have also had some successes as well. So, a civil society activist who you are, can you tell us what do you think are some of the successes as well as failures of the New Deal government for 40 years? What's your take on that?
Well, you need to look at where we started from and where we are. You want to talk about 1982 because you are looking at, we are in the second regime after our usual regime. You ask yourself, at takeoff and at the accession into power of President Paul Biya, what were the stakes? What most of them would say is that we were in a political system of terror and fear. But on the other hand, other pundits will tell you that there was a vibrant economy which has natural endowment. There were blueprint for investment that they used to call 5 years development plan. There were agro-pastoral shows. I mean, the country was an intermediary revenue economy that was moving to a developed country. Those are things you will find out about the old regime. But now the plus was you had the new era with a new person. You know, currently now people are erring for a new person because they are tired of the old person. That's how it has to do, even in a company. When you're a general manager, this time you have to leave. So that's what's happening. But in 1982, Paul Biya comes in with is communal liberalism, meaning he was going to liberate the economic and political and civil life of individuals. Today you talk about liberty, freedom of expression, which is one of the cornerstone of what was built in that intellectual document that is called communal liberalism. And the question with that document is, today we are doing an evaluation to know whether that document was put in practice. That's the question. Rigor and moralization, do we have it? How can you tell a young Cameroonian who was just seeing his birth in 1982 and 40 years today is a father or a mother, how can you tell him that the New Deal regime succeeds? That's a difficult exercise that we are going to do during this interview. But what I can tell you is that 40 years, economically speaking, is long. The long run in economics is 10 years. But we have now the duty of evaluating somebody who has been there for 40 years. Of course, you understand that some milestones that were achieved during the first years of this regime should have already been eaten off by the ills of the societies of the 20th century, with the event of democracy, contradictions, and which you never had in the former regime. You find out that a lot of people, the country is divided. Maybe not only a bipolarization, but a multipolarization, which is going to ethnicism and a lot of things you are seeing, and tribal insults and so on. So we will find out whether the president in due course succeeded in what he put in his communal liberalism.
And Mr. Killian, we might want to talk about some projects which were very promising when President Paul Biya took over power. We cannot talk about that enough. Those projects, like some airports which were already existing, so Cameroonians expected the New Deal to boost those airports and make them functional. On the contrary, like the airport in Bafut, in Tiko, in Bamungum, in Bafsam, and other projects like the Limbe deep sea port, which has somehow been neglected or forgotten about. Some people, especially of the opposition, think those are some of the greatest failures of the president. Are you of that same opinion?
Yeah, but those are different opinions, but it's true. You will simply have what you call a balance sheet. You will put the positive things in one basket and the negative things in the other. But of course, when you are in the last phase or this present phase of this regime, you will understand that the failures are wearing all, because it's all with perpetual regimes in politics. When you stay for long, yeah, I don't always like, let me talk the positive things. You started by naming the projects. I want to tell you that when you look at the president coming to power in 1982, and immediately an event like the coup d'etat, the military coup, that was a failed military coup, then you want to find out whether his casting, the people, he changed his casting of the people he was going to work with. Of course, during those first years, he was still having the political personnel from the one-party system and dictatorial system. Even he himself, President Paul Biya, is a creation of the old regime, because he served that regime in the first plant as a prime minister, as director of cabinet, and so on. So he cannot disassociate himself from that. But as people has to change, the only thing was that becoming now the first person, he had ideas to sell, economic ideas. But you find out in 1987, despite the positive thing to liberalize the economy was to open up for us, for people to be able to create their companies without fear, movement of capital and freedom. But the point is, how do you accompany this? In 1987, there was what we call the recession. That led to the reduction of salaries. You know, we are talking, if we talk economics, you see key points, milestones and indicators. That reduction of salary is still felt today. And in 2018, there was what we call the crisis of hunger that hit Cameroon and almost derailed Cameroon from the path of peace. And then because of, why have we never increased the salaries of civil servants? Because if you want to develop the economy and improve the economy, you must improve the purchasing power of the people. Why have they no increase? Why is there numerous amounts of money embezzled But there's a difficulty to increase the paycheck of the civil servant because you have multiplier effect. The private sector is another issue. So you see that the president engaged for project, infrastructural project, they improved some routes, some projects like Lompanga, Naktinga. But the question you ask today, are those products rational? Do they impact the ordinary Cameroonian? We have what we call light suspension, delestage, every time. Why is it that we have insufficiency of energy when we invest a lot of money? Is it a planning problem? Are they casting those who think about the plan of do they know priorities? Do they know where to do it? So you look at those things that the president, the initiatives of investment that he has taken. But the point is 10 for 40 years. Do those investments match with the growth, population growth of Cameroon? Don't forget that in the 1982, we were 7 million when Alijo was leading this country. And we know that our census has a problem. Maybe we are 30 million, we don't know the exact figure, but we have increased. Now, the people who plan economic development, you have to plan with frequent censuses so that you know the evolution of the population and you equate the development and investment opportunities to the number of people. The point is, these are not done because you see a lot of traffic. You see, even on our highways, we are unable to move because those infrastructures provided are not provided within the mindset of a modern Cameroon where people have increased, where we also have refugees who have those kind of indicators. So that is why you get some failures. And the failures now, to mention some, which are wearing more than is, number one failure is political. The president, has he succeeded to unite this country? The president, has he held his promise of upholding the constitution by changing the constitution several times without getting to the people through a referendum, by sitting only with his political family and tailoring the constitution to what they do? And you see that that's where there is a divide. The Cameroon people don't agree on the same laws that are supposed to be respected. And on the other way, the people are calling the people that you must respect the laws, which do not have a common consensus. Political failure. Another political failure is that it took the country from the last regime when we were all united Cameroon and went to La République de Cameroon. And today you know that there is a contention, a bone of contention between through the bicultural nature of this country, where one sector is in an armed conflict. So when you look at those things, they are big milestones that touch what we call peace and security. Don't forget that in our emblem, national emblem, peace, work, fatherland. It will have to uphold our founding fathers of this country. Any president should fight to sit on the table and negotiate with his people so that this country should be in the pathway of peace. We don't have the peace. Big failure. Second failure is in the old system that some people will name being terrifying. There was the fear of public property, the fear of waste, the fear of, not to talk about investment. But you see what happens today. People in high office, the news that we have, an ordinary Cameroonian, a young Cameroonian, can only learn how to be a kleptocrat, how to steal, how to take something that is not even used. Kleptocracy is even taking something that you don't have the use for. Because if somebody can take money that is equal to the budget of the state, it's not a state, it's an individual. That's pure kleptocracy is stealing. So what you see on TV, unfortunately, is big news, headlines, is that they are going to arrest this person, and the lump sums of money they are announcing is a big failure. It's the rigor and moralization. The moral aspect of civil life is in jeopardy, because imagine your daughter sitting and seeing that they are arresting the minister. In our days, we used to line all along the route to wait for the minister to pass. Ask me whether if he's even visiting my neighbor, I will pass there. Because they have lost value. And when those people who are handling at the helm of the state, handling what you call the state, and the nation is behind, then you see that there is no state authority, they lose authority. If somebody like that loses authority in front of you, it means that the state does not have authority again. But the nation is still holding. We are still there. So you see these failures like this, they are now because of the perpetual stay in power, overshadowing all the minor things that were being done.
Thank you, Mr. Killian. Before being a civil society activist, you are also an economist. Let me mention that. Sure, you just mentioned some few economic loopholes. Can you expatiate further on them?
Many. I've just spoken to you. Number one first is the planning. Who are the people planning the developments of this country? Yeah, the Lompanga we said, the grand ambition, grand realization. When you look at the project started, when you look at the rationale even of building the stadium in Cameroon, when you compare comparative analysis with what, and you've heard it in media, what is built elsewhere, we're in the same international market where those materials of buildings are bought by everybody. How do we come out with the stadium that costs 3 times more than the same stadium built somewhere else on the planet? Is it a problem of currency? It's not even. We buy those things in the same currency. You evaluate them in dollars, you have the same prices. So we get those infrastructures. They are there, but now are they the priority? Don't forget, sport is entertainment. What about our hospitals? It's true that you can venture in terms of education. There has been a multiplication of the fact that we have many universities, and of course in the English, the Boya University and the Bamenda University, a promise that was made in the bond that was signed between the authorities of Southern Cameroon and East Cameroon for Cameroon to become one. Number one thing was that there was going to be a university. Cas Bamli was supposed to transform to a university. He had to stay till 1992, 93, 94, before they created the first English university. But at least there's a saying that it's better late than never. It came, and now we have universities in almost all the 10 regions of the country. It's a plus. But now, if you go to the content, the specialists, I'm not a specialist in education, but I hear there's a cry out. How much do they pay teachers? What is the kind of lessons that dispensing there? Does it actually match with the job situation in the market? Are we training people to stay in the house? Are we training people to also get high offices of the republic when people are aging and falling and sitting in offices? These are all the ills that are surrounding the New Deal. Yeah.
All right, Mr. Killian, we cannot talk about President Paul Biya's 40-year reign without talking about the Anglophone crisis. And now it has been going on for 6 years now. It's no news. And it seems to really be neglected. Well, the Anglophone crisis is said to be one of the most neglected crises, not only in Africa, but across the world. What do you think can be some of the reasons behind this neglect of the Anglophone crisis by the Biya government?
You know, the question asking me is a very difficult question. But we can try to attempt an answer as just observers. We don't understand how children of the same ancestors are unable to sit and agree and talk. Who is willing and who is not willing? But now, in a conflict like that, by the time you start equating the people fighting on the other side with the government, it means that all of them, what they are doing, rejecting that, the killings are done by these people, it means that they are equating those people doing that in the field to the state. A state, I blame the state. First of all, is the state to prevent, to uphold unity. How did we come that we were unable, you see the different phases of how this conflict evolved. It started from teachers and so on. But you know, when I talk about teachers, I hear Francophone come and argue that it was they call what the revendication corporelle, that it was a professional sectorial, but they don't understand the ramification. Everything was about the language. Whether it was teachers, they were saying, look, they are posting Francophone to come and teach. Whether they were lawyers, they were talking of a common denominator. Not that they were found lawyers and they were saying that you go and be caught for Francophone and so on. Again, that's another problem. If we wanted to unite this country, do you need to go to a government bilingual school and see English section and the French section? First of all, the country is already divided, showing that we have two countries within the same country. If we had harmonized the education system, if you go to Canada, will you see that kind of a thing? That's an example of a bilingual country. You cannot walk into an education system and you distinguish the right and Francophone and Anglophone. It is not done like that there. So the very people who were in the conception of the unity system of this had put a failure by putting those demarcations. You know, you had to have a common judiciary system that was supposed to be applied. You had to have a common education system that was supposed to be applied. So if we didn't have this, it's a failure.
All right, thank you, Mr. Killian. My last question before we go, just to mention that the anti-BIA movement, which is in Europe, in most European countries, is known in French as Brigade Anti-Sardina. They disrupted, some of the members disrupted the 40 years celebration, commemoration of President Paul Biya's reign. In France, they disrupted the ceremony. They have been doing that in other occasions. Do you think the agitations of the anti-BIA movement, Brigade Anti-Sardina, can have an impact in the running of political affairs in Cameroon? Can it move the BIA regime to act otherwise?
Not an impact. What is happening is already having, there's a lot of things having political impact in this country. There are senior divisional officers and divisional officers that block completely the meetings of political parties. That one is happening at a distance. The only thing is the reputation of this country from an international dimension, what you call the diplomacy. What are you showing the world? I mean, the people in power will ask that why are those people destroying their country? We who are neutral, we have a neutral observation, we ask the government, what have you done with dual nationality? There is a problem with dual nationality country. Don't remember, I remind you that Didier Yango came to Cameroon and was vying for a position. They told him he was not a Cameroonian because he has dual nationality. Those guys are angry because these are children. That's their own way of manifesting their anger, just like the Anglophones, some of them took arms. And who knows whether BAS has already evolved to the arm or whether they are evolving to an armed group, we never know. So for me, it's just a manifestation of the fact that the president in his casting has resulted in the last years, I don't know whether the last year, of working with the people that don't listen to the people. So those people are having a cry. They are asked that they want their right to vote in their country, and there's a lot of money they transfer in this country from there that is developing this country, but they don't have the right to vote. They don't have the right to come back to their country and feel free and normal citizen. You can imagine for somebody to be stopped. Now Etofis is the president of FECAFOOD and has the same situation so you don't understand a country whereby we have two dimensions and two wrong way to application of the justice system and the law.
Thank you so much, Mr. Killian Nyoy-Seva, for being our guest on Talking Points tonight. And viewers, thank you so much for always being said on Schoolway. As usual, our programs continue in about 30 minutes. You will be with Serge Alain too for the program Equinoxe that will be live from Yaoundé, and Julien Bedbisai will be with you at 8 p.m. for the news in the French language. Bye-bye for now and stay blessed.